Minnesota rental laws govern all rent-related issues that may arise between a landlord and a tenant, from determining the terms of a lease agreement to the property filing for eviction. To avoid any conflicts that could involve in costly legal battles, it's highly recommended for both parties to become well-versed in these laws. In this video, we'll give you an overview of what the state law says about lease agreements, required disclosures, security deposits, and evictions. We're eForms, the largest online database of fillable legal forms. Check out the link below to access a fillable lease agreement template. Let's first go over the basics. What is a lease agreement? A lease agreement is a rental contract between a landlord and a tenant, depending on the type of agreement, whether it's a month-to-month lease, a standard lease agreement, or a rent-to-own. Both the landlord and tenant are bound to the specific terms regarding the length of the lease, termination, and more. Because a lease agreement is legally binding once it's signed, breaking the contract can result in hefty fines or even legal action. Next, let's take a look at the required disclosures. In Minnesota, there are a total of 5 disclosures that the landlord must provide to the tenant. Covenant of landlord and tenant not to allow unlawful activities. All residential lease agreements in Minnesota must include a statement about unlawful activities involving controlled substances, prostitution, robbery, or domestic violence being prohibited from the premises. Financial distress. If the property is being foreclosed upon or a deed of cancellation has been issued, the landlord must notify the tenant, who may not legally sign the lease for more than a 2-month period. Landlord-manager information. The landlord must provide a disclosure about any agents authorized to act on behalf of the landlord on the premises. An address must also be provided for any legal notices the tenant may want to send. Outstanding inspection orders. If the premises has any outstanding inspection orders due to a property code violation, the landlord must disclose this information to the tenant. Lead-based paint disclosure. Under federal law, if the property was built prior to 1978, the landlord must provide a disclosure about the possible presence of harmful lead-based paint on the property. Now let's take a closer look at security deposit laws. In Minnesota, there is no legal cap on how much a landlord can charge for a security deposit. As for returning the security deposit, the landlord is legally required to return the security deposit within 3 weeks of the tenancy being terminated. Finally, let's cover Minnesota's eviction laws. In Minnesota, a landlord may evict a tenant under the following requirements. Non-payment of rent. If the tenant is late on rent, the landlord can issue an immediate notice to quit. Unlike most other states that require at least a week's notice, Minnesota allows landlords to file for an eviction immediately against the tenants who fail to pay rent. Non-compliance. Similarly, if the tenant violates any other terms of the lease agreement, the landlord can issue a notice to quit on their own terms. Termination. If the landlord wants to terminate a month-to-month lease for reasons other than non-payment of rent or non-compliance, they must provide 30 days notice to the tenant. Want to learn more about Minnesota rental laws? Visit the link in the video description for a comprehensive breakdown on all things related to lease agreements, evictions, and more.